There are Android devices in all shapes and sizes from all different manufacturers and all different carriers. Some have custom user interfaces even that the manufacturers put on top of Android to try to help differentiate their devices from others on the market. Now that's all fine and dandy. Lots of options and lots of different price points for everyone. But what if you want the latest and greatest Android has to offer? Maybe even first crack at the latest version of Android itself, no bloatware, and the option to buy the device on multiple carriers. Well then, there's really only one device to get, a Nexus. You may not be aware of this, but about once a year, Google themselves design a phone along with a manufacturer of their choice, and often with a new version of Android installed on it as well. This year, that manufacturer is Samsung. The version of Android is called Android 4.0, which is also called Ice Cream Sandwich, and the device they come together on is the Galaxy Nexus. Let's start with some impressive numbers. 4.65-inch Super AMOLED capacitive touchscreen with 720p resolution, or 720 by 1280 pixels, squeezed into a frame that is thinner than an iPhone 4S and not much taller than a Samsung Galaxy S2. We have a 1.2 GHz dual-core processor, 1 GB of RAM, 1080p recording from a 5 megapixel camera, video calling from a 1.3 megapixel front-facing camera, and finally 16 gigs or 32 gigs of internal storage. In addition to all these figures, it isn't the ugliest phone either. With its curved glass screen, lack of buttons, there's only two really, the volume rocker and the power button, its texturized back, sheer thinness, and the super bright AMOLED screen, it'll probably make your current phone jealous. Your current phone might even call it a slut for no reason in particular. One of the things that really has people buzzing about this phone is the new version of Android that comes on it, which is Android 4.0, also called Ice Cream Sandwich. Android 4.0 is very polished, it's even a little more intuitive and a lot prettier than the older versions of Android. We're going to go into all of the new features in Android 4.0 in our overview coming soon. You can check on our site for that. But we'll just give you an idea of what kinds of things they've changed here. First thing you'll notice is the lack of physical buttons on the phone. All the navigation is now done on the screen itself. You have the home button, the back button, and your multitasking button. So some of the more functional changes here include multitasking, which now can use 18 apps instead of just 6 or 8. That the older versions of Android could do. Also, the multitasking has this great little thumbnail layout, so you can see all of the different apps that are running and what state you left them in, which is pretty cool. Apps on the screen can also be organized a bit better by creating folders for them. You create a folder simply by holding the app, dragging it over another one, and letting it go, and that's it. You can even give these folders different labels, take things out of them to remove them, etc. Also, widgets can now be resized, which is pretty cool. So if you take a widget, for example this one, you can hold down on it, and then you can drag it out to make it larger or smaller. Now, the settings, or a way to get to the setting, has also been added in the notification bar. So if you pull down the notification bar, you can see that there's a button for settings in there, which is pretty functional. When you're using other apps, it's easier now to get to settings to change things. Also within settings, they've added a data counter that can warn you when you reach a set limit. Besides that, we also have the camera. Now the camera has been made a lot faster, it loads up a lot quicker, and it can literally pretty much take pictures almost instantly. So you can just keep tapping this and see that it's taking a bunch of pictures really fast. Okay, so voice to text isn't anything new for Android. But with this latest version of Android, you can pretty much instantly translate voice to text. This is great, especially
when you need to type something that's a little longer than normal.
Now, other than that, and a few other things, a lot of the differences are cosmetic. Now, that's not to say that these changes are any less important. On the contrary, some of the cosmetic changes are quite important. They change the look and feel of Android itself, making it feel more polished, and even in some cases more intuitive or easier to read. All in all, Android 4.0 brings some great changes, but as with any new software, there are a bug or two. Since app developers haven't had much time with Ice Cream Sandwich, you occasionally run into an app that doesn't function quite correctly. Case in point, and one of the bigger ones, would be Facebook. Normally you can sync your Facebook contacts with your address book, but in ICS you can't, no matter how hard you try. Other apps even that I've downloaded simply just won't open. Now this is to be expected, however, but as more and more devices get their Ice Cream Sandwich updates, these apps will eventually be fixed. But that brings us to a good point. This may be the first device to run Ice Cream Sandwich officially, but it isn't the only one. More and more devices will get this update. So the question is it worth buying the Galaxy Nexus just to have it first? Yes and no. While it is true that other devices with similar hardware specs even will get this software update eventually, it could take months before they do. Not to mention those devices have a strong chance of having custom interfaces, other software, etc. being added by the manufacturers, the carriers, etc. onto them before that update is then released to them, and that could maybe muck about with the experience a bit. Also, since this is a Nexus device, you know that there will be tons of third-party development for it, which means tons of ROMs, themes, fun hacks, and a bunch of just stuff to kind of push your device to the limit. Now, of course, if you've been to our site before, you know that you can find all of these hacks, how-tos, tips, tricks, etc. by heading to the how-to section at the top left of our site. So in conclusion, if you crave the latest and greatest, are looking for a high-end device with a huge bright screen, hate manufacturer bloatware, and waiting a few months for anything tech-related makes you want to punch a kitten in the face, then there's probably only one device for you. So I hope you enjoyed our little review, our quick review of the Galaxy Nexus. If you want a full overview of Android Ice Cream Sandwich or Android 4.0, head to the Tech 101 section on our site, and it should be up there within the next day or so. Also, if you want to check out some of our how-tos for the device, as I mentioned before, you can head to the how-to section of our site, then just click on Android, the manufacturer, which is Samsung in this case, and then the device itself, the Galaxy Nexus. One of the how-tos we did already is how to get Google Wallet, which isn't normally available for this device, onto the device so you can use the phone to actually pay for things at anywhere that accepts a PayPass in New York and San Francisco at the moment, but I'm sure it's going to be launching nationwide pretty shortly. Also, something that we're going to try is we have our new forums on the site that we're just kind of starting to work on. So I'm going to actually start a topic for Ask Me Anything You Want about the Galaxy Nexus, and that will have a place for you guys to go within the next couple of days. I'll keep checking there every couple of hours or so, or whenever I get a second. Ask me any questions you want about the Galaxy Nexus while I have it in my hand, and I can either check out what you need me to do or just answer the questions because I know the answers sometimes. So feel free to go check that out. The link to that topic will be beneath this video on our site. And thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.